Hi guys, this is College Counselor Joe here again, and today I wanted to go over the big problem with the UCs. And to really put some perspective into this, I want you to imagine a stadium full of people, right? I want you to imagine you're at the Super Bowl, and you see about 11,000 people filling up the stands. That's the average amount for the Super Bowl, right? And I want you to transport all those people into one tiny college campus. That's essentially the amount of people that we saw at UCLA last year. UCLA admitted about 8,795 students. This is not including their graduate level programs. This is just for undergrad first years, right? And so it's essentially the equivalent of seeing an entire Super Bowl every single day going on campus taking classes, right? And so how do you manage, if you're an administrator, how do you manage 9,000, 10,000 students all at the same time, all of whom are taking different classes, have different ambitions and dreams? You stuff as many students into one section or course as possible. And so last year we had Political Science 1 by UCLA, right? Political Science 1 is really infamous for having close to 2,000 students. And last year they had 1,500 students in that particular section. Now, what this means is that not all the students can attend the class at the same time. You had students who were sitting down on the floor. You had students that were, sitting down in the hallway, spilled out into the hallway. And unfortunately, the byproduct of admitting this number of students every single year into your campus is that you have to wait for everything. You have to wait to talk to the teachers. You have to wait for the cafeteria line. You have to wait to get that stupid thing with the W-2s done for the administrators. You have to wait for things that could be considered emergencies like mental health services, right? And so that's the unfortunate byproduct of things like this. But the biggest problem with the UCs is the fact that they grade on a curve, right? Now, what does it mean to be graded on a curve? I mean, I'm sure you guys have taken some classes where it's like this. Basically, what it means is that if everyone had a certain level of grades and performance on an exam or on a course, right, they will only give maybe the top 5 to 10% of the class an A in the class. Now, the unfortunate thing is that you can get a 90% and above. You can get above a 90% on an exam, right? Which essentially in most public high schools would be the equivalent of an A. And it is still possible under this particular system that you will get a B. And it does happen quite frequently in the UC system. And so as a result, UC students tend to graduate with lower GPAs than the average student from other classes. As a matter of fact, their average GPA that a UC student graduates with is about 3.588. It's not particularly high, it's not particularly low either, but keep in mind that these are some of the best students in the country. You know, these are students that studied really hard to be there, and yet their highest GPA that they can achieve is a 3.588, right? And this also includes other majors that are both competitive and non-competitive, so this may not be even representative of your major. If you're an engineering student, if you're an electrical engineering student, your average GPA might be like 3.3 or 3.1, right, for the average student in your cohort. Now, to give you some perspective, the average medical school GPA that is required to enter into any medical school in the United States is about 3.71, right? 3.71. So in other words, there's a humongous gap between, the average GPA from UC system and the average, graduate level school GPA. And so the unfortunate thing is that, ironically, despite being some of the best institutions in the world, the UCs actually hurt their students with their low GPAs. Their students are less competitive. Their students have to do better on exams, like the MCAT or like on graduate level tests, right, in order to be able to get into the same schools. And so this is a problem that's persisting with the UCs. As a matter of fact, last year, the new administration had decided to cut about 10% of the UC's funding. And so unfortunately, this is only going to get worse. There's going to be less administrators per student. There's going to be less teachers per student. There might even be more students per teacher. And the grading on the curve is thus going to have to increase because they are going to have too many students in every single section. So that's not to say that the UCs are bad school systems by any means, right? I think they're wonderful schools, and if you manage to get into one, you should consider yourself very lucky. But these kinds of factors really should be, you have to know about these things before deciding to commit to a UC school. Because this will be part of your reality, and boy, will you feel it at UCLA or UC Berkeley, the 8,000 or 9,000 kids if you go there every single day. So please keep that in mind, stay safe, and best of luck to all the folks that are graduating this year.